interesting data coming in today where July figures for GST collections were out. A total of 1,48,995 crore rupees was collected in July compared to the 1.4 lakh last month. This is the second highest revenue mop-up since the introduction of GST. It has also come in 28% higher as compared to revenues in the same month last year. Integrated GST mop-up has come in at 79,500 crores versus 75,900 crores last month. In fact, in an exclusive conversation with ET Now, Revenue Secretary Tarun Bajaj spoke about the GST collection. Listen in to what he said.
We have done 1.49 lakh crores in this month, which means the month of July. This is the second highest ever since GST came into being. So that's again a very good number. It's a very good sign that again the economy is showing an upswing, and also the fact that the compliances are showing some results and we are now on board for a stable and a healthy GST return. I'm also happy to say that for the first 4 months, that is April to July, our GST figures are 35% more than what they were last year. So this is the buoyancy, as you can well imagine, is much more than 1, maybe close to 2. So that is a very healthy number. Maybe we may not be able to sustain this 35%, but I'm sure that we'll have a very healthy growth. Last year also we grew by almost 30%. So if we can grow by 30% in the current year, I think on the GST side also we are home. Yes, we need to make some more improvements on the GST side, on the policy side, on the technology side, and we are simultaneously working on it and also ensuring that we sensitize our taxpayers, our own officers, to ensure that GST payment also becomes a seamless affair.
And to speak more on the GST collections, the trends that we are seeing and whether they are sustainable, I'm joined now by MS Money partner Deloitte and Sachin Menon, partner and head of Indirect Taxes, KPMG. Welcome to both of you and thank you so much for speaking with us today on the India Development Debate. Money, I thought this was an interesting conversation because especially if you see the year-on-year increase, and last time this year we had started opening up. Would you say that we are now stabilizing with the GST regime and it is an indicator that demand and the economy is truly now going forward?
Look, I think comparison with only last year may not be the most appropriate yardstick. We need to look at the trend over the last 5 months where we have been seeing month on month good GST collections.
Yes.
So around a year back, I think most of us would be very excited with a GST collection of 1 lakh crore or 1 trillion.
Yes.
Now the new normal has become 1.4 lakh crores. Now to me, when we see this kind of, these kind of numbers over the last 4 or 5 months, continuously month on month, there are 2 trends that come up. One is the fact that yes, the economy, which is the basis on which the GST collection numbers are derived, because bear in mind, the GST collections is a much wider perspective of the macroeconomic picture. It provides a very wide perspective of the macroeconomic picture. So it means that the economy overall is doing well, has stabilized, has come of age. The second is the fact that the GST databases are giving a lot of inputs. Basis with GST audits, GST scrutiny, GST analytics are being picked up big time. So over a period of time, this has led to many of the businesses who were possibly outside the GST net coming into the GST net. Businesses which were already in the GST net making more efforts, taking more pains to ensure that they pay the right kind of tax. If you also look at it, you will see an increase in the number of e-way bills raised, an increase in the number of GST taxpayers who have been registered, the number of returns filed. So when you look at it overall, to me, it clearly seems to indicate that GST as a tax has come of age, it has achieved acceptability, and it is now going to achieve significant amount of scale in the months to come.
Sachin, if 1.4 lakh crores is the new normal, are we only going to see that base price or that base point increase consistently? And do you think it's a direct result of economic activity or also maybe increasing compliance? That tax net has been widened. It's been made slightly easier to do this. And there has been a crackdown also on evaders. Could that also be contributing factors?
So basically, there are three factors, main factors leading to this, the buoyant revenue in GST collection. Number one is the inflation. The inflation is almost in double digits now. So the inflation is one of the reasons why we are having a better collection. The second is that the government is succeeded in putting the pieces in place and putting a good mechanism to drive collection by crack down on the evaders, as well as there is anti-evasion measures. There are various inquiries, etc. started. So there is a better compliance, which the government is successful in achieving. The third factor is that there is a real economic growth. Going by the consumption, I think compared to last year, it is just about 2% more consumption. But generally speaking, I think we are doing good, and the consumption is actually pushing, the economic growth is actually pushing the recovery, the better collection. So three main factors is the reason why you are seeing a spike in the collection of GST revenue. And if you look at one of the major factors contributing towards collection and the increasing collection is the commodity prices, like metal, etc., has gone through the roof. Therefore, the GST contribution is much higher than earlier in the case of import of goods. So essentially, if you look at the overall picture, it is not one factor which is contributing towards the buoyancy in collection. And in my view, this will continue because the indicators are that we are in comparison, India is doing well in all economic parameters. And inflation is not going to be taken down immediately. So in my view, this record of 1.4 crores, 1,40,000 crores average is supposed to go up in the coming days.
Okay. You know, of all the factors that Sachin spoke about, Mani, I think it's important to just spend a little time talking about the underlying impact of inflation. Because that is also boosting the numbers overall. If things cost more, then the tax levied on it will also cost more. So does that, in a sense, undermine GST as only an indicator of economic demand?
Look, to my mind, while inflation could be a contributory factor in the good GST collections that we are having over the last 4 or 5 months, it may not be a very major factor for two reasons. One, the largest amount of inflation in the wholesale basket of inflation in the WPI, which we have seen, is essentially in respect of petroleum products. And petroleum products are outside the purview of GST. So the collection from petroleum products have nothing to do with GST collections. They are reflected in the central government excise collections and in the state VAT collections. The other part of inflation that we have been seeing in the wholesale price index essentially has been in respect of fruits and vegetables. Both of them are again outside the purview of GST. Consequently, when we look at inflation, yes, inflation is certainly one of the causative factors overall. And GST being an ad valorem tax which is based on the value, yes, it will impact. But has it been the major contributory of the high GST collections? I would say that may not be the case.
Talking about GST at 5 years, and here's a follow-up for you, Mani. Do you think that the compliance headache has gone down a bit? The initial few years was definitely tough. There's constant tinkering with how to make it easier. And has it become easier, especially for smaller businesses?
Yes, it has certainly become easier over a period of time. The initial hiccups are definitely gone. There's no doubt about it. The GST portal works very, very well. Even when people need to get data which they can match with on the vendor side, The data is readily available and accessible. Are we done with the entire simplification of the process? No, it is work in progress. But we have come a long way since the time we used to have regular occurrences of delays in GST return filings, which would lead to a delay in the timeline for filing return. Those days possibly, hopefully, are behind us. They should not happen in future. But are we there completely, especially in respect of enabling it and simplifying it for SMEs and MSMEs? Possibly there is work in progress and a lot more simplification needs to be done.
Yeah, that same question to you, Sachin. As we are, today celebrating great collections, 1.4 lakh crore rupees has been steady over the last few months. Is it still a headache like it used to be, or is that pain easing?
Well, the answer is that how technically savvy the taxpayer is. That's a question mark. Now, if you look at the total number of assessees, 80% of them is falling under the SME or small scale sector, and 20% is the cream layer, which is contributing towards 80% of the revenue, or more than 80% of the revenue. Now, for this 20% sector, things are settled, more or less settled, because there are so many amendments and improvisation happened in the compliance tool which you are using, the software which you are using. So things are more or less settled from that side. Now, coming to the MSME sector, as far as they are concerned, they are still getting used to this new compliance mechanism, and the noise and cries you are hearing is from the majority of them, though they're contributing 20% of the revenue. The noise is coming from both sides. So slowly and steadily, I think that the system is also getting much more simpler now. The GSTR 2A, 2B, the RICO now perhaps may not be needed because they are giving you the 2B finally, which would be reflected even in the GSTR 3. So that reduces a lot of effort of RICO, etc. Though you may have to RICO for your purpose, but generally speaking, the compliance burden is gradually coming down. And that feeling of the compliance burden coming down would reach to the SME, MSME sector much later, because they need to be used to this new system of digital compliance.
Relatively, it's 5 years, but relatively, it's still a young tax and will take more time to shape up. But for now, it's been a great performance in terms of collections, including for this month. Thank you so much, Sachin, Menon and MS Money for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.